and welcome again. Today we get to talk to Stephanie for the second time. This is the series where we get to talk about what does it feel like after the book has been published and it's been out there for like about 4 to 6 weeks, somewhere in that range. We released it back in February. It's now towards the end of March, and we are just so excited to bring Stephanie back on and just have a conversation and see how she's feeling as an author and see how she's feeling about how the book has been received by everyone who's bought it from her. So welcome, Stephanie, and good morning.
Good morning, Rachelle. Thank you again for having me on to talk about Rooted to Rise, our, first of its kind book that hit best-selling on Amazon new release. And we are just really, really excited about it.
Yeah, it stayed in the top 100 for a month in personal transformation. That is just unreal. We were, most of us were first-time authors, at least, let's see, 4 or 5 of us were first-time authors. I was a first-time curator. And so tell me, how does it feel to be a #1 best-selling author for your very first book?
Honestly, it was really so unexpected. I mean, I know that's what we like really set ourselves up to try to do, but I I thought it was just big and that it really wouldn't happen. So um crazy that it actually did. And I think I'm still just kind of like in a weird spot about it. Like it doesn't really feel real.
Mhm.
Um but like when I bump into somebody outside and they've like mentioned the book immediately when they see me, it almost takes me back like, oh, okay, yeah, I did do that. Like it's a weird thing, to like, um, I guess to be recognized for something that you're promoting, but you don't really know who's seeing it. You know what I mean? So when you bump into people and the first thing they mention is you had a book come out, and you're like, oh yeah, I did. So I guess I'm still kind of in that weird, like I'm an author, but I don't really feel like it stage. Does that make sense? I don't know what's going to solidify it for me, but I'm in. I guess I'm still in the clouds. I'm going to say I'm kind of still up in the clouds about it.
And there's nothing wrong with being up in the clouds. I hope you stay on cloud nine for forever because, becoming an author is such a surreal situation. It's the situation of getting it written and then you get it to edits and then you do some editing and then you send it back to edits and then you're sitting in all of your feels after, like, it's not just yours anymore. And so you've set it up, and then we did that interview after that period of time. And that's why I love capturing both moments because, what makes you feel like you stepped into something scary? And what makes you feel like you're on the other side of that? I know for me, personally, doing book signings, being in that community with other people, coming up to your table and picking up the book and going, oh, wow, what is this about? I think that that's when you really have the moments like you're sitting at a table and you're signing your name and you're like, I've seen this on TV. This is weird. Is this
Yeah.
me now? So maybe that'll be a moment for you. I'd love to hear about that when you have your first like official book signing. But I would love, we did everything within alphabetical order, but I do feel like your chapter always needed to be first. With an anthology, you don't need to read it in order or anything like that, but we've been so conditioned to pick up a book and start from the beginning. But if we hadn't done it in order, alphabetical order, I still would have put your chapter first because there's something stepping into your message that I think needs to be read first. So for anybody who hasn't read it yet, I would start with Stephanie's chapter. And this is kind of my favorite part because none of the authors are ever prepared for the parts that I pick out. And I want to point out that, first of all, your title says the body knows even if we don't. And sorry, I'm still working with this whole I have a background thing.
Which the
Um,
background's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. One of our editors made it. So throughout your chapter, you kept saying, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. And I think that's important because most of the people listening today, they don't know either. And a lot of us step into life with a whole bunch of unknowns, and that's what life is all about, is the discovery period. So can you share with us a little bit about why you even went with kind of that theme, and maybe how was it born inside of your heart that you then were able to get it down on paper?
Um, so I feel like the wellness in your 40s, you get to your 40s and well, let's be honest, at 18 we think we have it all figured out, right? And in your 20s you just solidify in your brain that you have it all figured out. And in your 30s you kind of start to doubt, did you really have it all figured out? By your 40s, you realize you don't know anything.
So
Um, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like I literally hit my 40s and realized there was this whole slew of information about health and wellness that I didn't know that my my mom didn't teach me. You know what I mean? And or what didn't come up in conversation with friends or I just didn't know. And I am such a love to learn, love to, figure new things out. And for this to be a whole science, a neuroscience and cannabis science, this whole science that I had no idea about. It just it kept blowing me away how many things I didn't know. You know what I mean? So I just felt like other people would resonate with there's so much stuff we don't know. I mean, even unrelated to this, there's so many things we don't know, right? About anything, just anything, right? Um, so I felt like it was something that was very relatable to other people. And I felt like it was very easy because there was so much I didn't know.
uh-huh.
And as I was figuring it out, I was realizing I didn't know. There was just so much meat to be able to create the content with the I didn't know theme.
I love that. Yeah. And there were so many points that you pointed out. This book is about cannabis, but this book is so much more. And I think that that's why we landed in the personal transformational category. Amazon does its own little AI generation, da da da. What does this book need to land in? And I feel like in every chapter, but especially yours, there was just so much personal transformation. And even towards the end, you can read that you're not even, I mean, you're just scratching the surface of your personal transformation. Am I correct on that? So
Yeah.
you just were, you expressed it so well. And it felt like just grabbing a cup of tea and sitting down with a friend and just like really being in that space with you. So I just have to commend you. First of all, you're an amazing writer. Um,
Oh, thank you.
the way you connect with who you're talking to, I feel like your chapter really taught to everybody on some level. Like man, woman, old, young, in between, like you really have such a gift to like connect with the masses of people. And I feel like everybody will take something away. And one of the things I took away, there were so many, so it was hard to kind of choose, but this part in your chapter where you say you're talking about being on like anxiety pills and all of that kind of stuff, and you were like, okay, I'm gonna give the CBD thing a chance. And you had a lot of trepidation, and you even had a plan B. If this doesn't work, sorry, I don't know why I'm losing my voice today. If this doesn't work, I always have a fallback. But I feel like how you talked about it, you weren't really going to ever fall back. You knew it was going to work. So this part, but no one noticed is what you said. I didn't become irritable. And I didn't revert back to the snippy, impatient person I had been. And I didn't even have any awful withdrawals from stopping the prescription, as I had every other time I cycled myself off of it. The conclusion was that CBD was working for me too. I would love if you could share that moment or that aha or that awareness. I feel like there's so many benefits to CBD, and you kind of pinpointed so many. It helped how you felt. It helped with the side effects coming off of the pills. You had the aha. It was actually like it wasn't just for everybody else, it was also for you. So I would love to dig into that if you don't mind.
Yeah. You know, wanting to try it for my late husband, and seeing it immediately work for him was fantastic. But the hope that I was feeling for it to work for me, because it took a while, every day I'm just holding on to the hope. So then, it's kind of just building, right? Because every day it's going longer until I'm figuring out if it worked, and it's going longer until it worked, and I wanted it to work. And so I do feel like the emotions, when I finally realized it did and it was working, were so high because I had built it up for, while I was waiting. It's watching it work for him and hoping it was going to work for me. But honestly, it wasn't until later that I realized that it helped with the withdrawals. Like way later, like maybe even like when I was writing this, that I, you know, really connected those dots, that I didn't have that withdrawal because I was so excited about it replacing the prescription.
Mm-hmm.
I was focused on that it was keeping me patient, and it was keeping me from being overwhelmed, which turned me into the snippy person, right? Um, I was so focused on whether or not my husband was going to be able to tell that I went off the medicine, because he wanted me to do it longer, like not go off it longer, because he saw me through those cycles, and didn't want me to feel the way that I was feeling when I went through those. So I didn't tell him because I went off of it earlier than he wanted me to. So I had some anxiety of, oh my gosh, if I'm snippy and impatient, he's going to realize I went off, and then he's not going to think that it's working for me. So the fact that it all worked out, right? He did say that he could tell that I went off the medicine, but he could also see that the CBD was working.
Oh, good.
So when we did finally talk about it, he did say he could tell. I didn't really dig deep into like how he could tell, but he did say he could tell. I'm a routine person, so it might have just been that, like, I wasn't popping a pill in the morning is what he noticed. So who knows? He's not here to ask. But we did. The excitement of it being able to work for multiple things, right? Because for him, it was helping with the side effect of his chemo pills, and it was helping him sleep. Well, those weren't the things that I needed it to work for. And we were taking the exact same thing, right? So, one of the things that people always say is, how does CBD work for so many things? Well, with medicine, you're targeting something, right? Um, with CBD, this isn't a target. You're not taking something to target what's wrong with you, right? You're taking something that your body needs, and when the body gets what it needs, it tells your body how to fix what is ailing you. So that's totally two different things. You're not feeding the problem. You're not feeding CBD to the problem. You're feeding the CBD to your body that helps your body fix the problem. So it just so amazing, really, just
Oh,
amazing.
yes, I agree. I love that. Were you and your husband taking like the same amount and the same,
Yes.
like exactly the same? Wow. That's like
Yes.
really a testament to the fact that, it gets in there and it does what it needs to do. It's like
Yeah.
it already knows what you need. So it doesn't matter like the height or the weight or the sex of somebody. It's just like it zones in. And I love that
Right.
because I saw similar results, with me and my husband as well, with our own things. And I really love that at the end of your chapter, you talk about my relationships are healthier and I'm finding joy in life as I move through it as a widow. My only regret is that Daryl didn't get to experience this version of me while here on earth, although I know he's looking down on me with pride, saying that's my wife. Whew, that part like made me just bawl. I was in a rec center when I was reading this, and I was just bawling. And I know it's bringing emotions up with you as well. And I think that so many people need to hear what is in your heart from this last paragraph because there's so many that are widows, so many people that have lost parents, that siblings, best friends, all the things. There's just so much illness. There's so many people experiencing grief. And I would love if you could share from your heart to talk to people who, I mean, grief doesn't go away.
No, no.
So I just want to open it up to you because that last paragraph just, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, grief is a hard thing. Uh for me, I wanted to process it, right away. I mean, I was deep into getting books and figuring out what I was feeling and journaling and that kind of thing to because you're just all over the place. You're just all over the place, right? And it's a lot of waves. It's a lot of waves, grief is. But for me, in the process of processing grief, it became clear that part of the things that were coming up in my inner work and my, mental health work were things that were actually there before the grief, and they were just being, overwhelmed. The grief was making them more overwhelming. So figuring out that I had these other things that really needed to be kind of processed, which really that's what mental health inner work is. It's helping you process emotions about things that happen to you. Um, it's really as simple as that. As your body needs to process something to get it you to keep you from continuing to bring it out in toxic ways. Um, so for me to figure that part out and to start processing things that were making me mentally unwell and not even realizing it because so many people don't even know they're mentally unwell.
Mhm.
Seriously, they just think the way of it's being snippy and overwhelmed and impatient and yelling at your kids and snapping at strangers is a way of life. Like that, it's literally doesn't have to be. You can fix your shit
Mhm.
and be a happier person in this world. Um, for me, CBD created the clarity for me to see that stuff. And it created it helped me with the widow, the fog, right? My husband, throughout our entire relationship, told me that he was sent to save me. And, um, and I always related it to God, and it is a God thing, but he also saved me in the mental wellness way with his passing because I don't know that I ever would have. Maybe I would have, but stumbled upon the mental things that needed to be processed to help me be a more mentally well-rounded person. If he hadn't passed away, right? Or could have taken me another decade to get there. His passing really shook things up, and it has turned me into a completely different person. 3 years later, I feel like a totally different person. I feel more mentally well and strong, and um, that is the part that I wish he could have seen, because I feel like when you're more mentally well, you love your people better. Because when we're not mentally well, we're so focused on ourselves that we unintentionally hurt the people in our lives. No one can tell me that a mom that speaks snippily to her child consistently, if you ask that mom if she's intentionally trying to hurt her child in the long term by speaking to her child that way, the mother's never going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's never going to say, yes, I'm intentionally thinking every day of the mean things I can say to my kid to F them up for the rest of their lives. Nobody, very few people are intentionally doing that. But that's what happens, right? That's what's happening because the mom has never processed stuff. You know what I mean? And it's anything. We take what's spoken to us and turn it into something else in our brain. And that's what we have on repeat, right? The things that make us feel not worthy. I think through everything that I process through my grief process and the neuroscience that I've learned about and continue to do that work is, to feel worthy, you have to do the work that's making to process the things that are making you feel unworthy. And I think that I could have loved my husband so much better had I loved myself better first. And I'm thankful that he loved me unconditionally and saw this person. I feel like he always saw this person, even though that's not who I was when he was here. But I know he sees it now, and he knew I could become this. And throughout our relationship, he always would say, "That's my wife." If I would be across the room laughing loudly because I have a very loud laugh, he in conversation with whoever he was across the room, he'd be like, "Oh, that's my wife," you know. And he did that numerous times over the years. So I thought that phrase was a perfect ending to my chapter.
Whew. Just like your chapter, I'm like trying to hold back tears right now. That was probably one of the most powerful messages I've ever heard anybody say, what you just said.
Oh,
So,
oh.
whew. Well, with that, what would you say to somebody if they're on the fence about wanting to share a part or their story or what have you, especially in something like an anthology? I know we have book number 2 coming up, and we have a whole bunch of people kind of on the fence, just like everybody else was. So I know you touched a little bit on what made you say yes when I was like, okay, who wants to do book 1? What would you tell somebody that's on this journey of should I not? What would you share with them?
Um, I I think you have to dig deep into these things. You have to think about your reasons for something. If I hate to say if you're only doing it for praise, it's not something to do.
Right.
Um, it's an emotional journey, and it's going to help you process whatever you're writing about, good, bad, indifferent. You're going to process things because your mind, when you're writing, your mind is constantly thinking in the background of things to put into the book. I don't care what you're doing. When you decide that you're going to do it, your brain's just going to be working in the background because our minds are amazing things, right? Um, and you're going to process. And when you start thinking about things, because you only think about them because of your experiences. And so you're going to think about experiences, and it's going to make you bring up emotions that you forgot about or didn't even realize you had. So you have to be ready for that. If you're not, then this is not the process for you to start. But maybe you don't know that you're not ready. And so you do start, and you have to pause and do some processing and come back to it later. And that's okay too. But if you're doing this for accolades and praise, then it's not the project for you.
Exactly.
Um, but if you're doing it for processing stuff yourself and for allowing other people to see that you chose to be vulnerable and it could push them to be vulnerable too, then do it. Do it.
I love that. Yeah, it's I always start off every project with it's going to be a wild ride, and it sure indeed was for all of us, myself included. Every time I go into a book, I know that I'm about to be on a wild ride, and I just released my own memoir, the month after, just like what, a week or two ago, and it's still
Yeah.
a wild ride. And so writing is so cathartic, sharing our stories is bringing more light into the darkness of the world. And so the
Yeah.
more we share our stories, whether it's through books, telling somebody, whatever the platform is, it's just so important because we live in a world, especially now, where we feel very isolated. Am I the only one? Is this normal? Should I be feeling this way? How should I cope with this? What are healthy coping mechanisms versus unhealthy coping mechanisms and all of that? And I know you touched a little bit on that in your own chapter of how I was finding that balance. And I just thank you so much. I want to give you an opportunity. You have shared so much from your heart, but I know there's always just a little bit more in everyone. And so I would love to just kind of open it up and let you just share any part of whether it was about writing the book, becoming an author, your chapter, what have you. Is there anything on your heart that you would love to end this with, so that people can take even more value away? I'm just blown away by how you just use words to just make people feel all the feels. So open platform, Stephanie. Is there anything else you'd like to share today?
I really feel like this is the tip of the iceberg for me, with sharing and creating a space for people to figure out the things that they didn't know. I think there's a whole slew of things that women in their 40s don't realize until they're in their 40s. But things with our bodies, things with our minds, things with our relationships, things with our finances. So I'm really, leaning into trying to figure out the path of the project of how to share with women in their 40s the things that I didn't know until I was in my 40s, and now I know, Um, and it really all starts with the mental health. So this was the first step of sharing, with my cannabis sisters how we've created good mental wellness through using this plant. And then that's the start. Been the start of my journey. I feel like it's actually the start of many people's journey. They're actually already on it, using cannabis in certain ways, and don't even realize that they just need to get pushed past that. Because I used cannabis for many years until I came across the hemp version and the CBD, and that pushed me along this path. Right. So yeah, I'm just excited to continue sharing. And my website is, starting to develop as a place for resources for women in their 40s to figure out things that they didn't know. So, yeah, looking forward to sharing some more things on that, and yeah, sharing more books.
I love that. I feel like there is a book in the future that you could possibly curate of what I didn't know until my 40s or something to that effect. Would you
Yeah.
please share your website and let people know how can they buy the book from you?
Yeah, so on the book is available on my website. It's stephanieann22.com. And there is a book page on there. There's also some different resources about how you can find confidence and clarity and calmness through using plant products and the inner work that of processing your emotions. So feel free to check it out, and would love to see some people getting the Rooted to Rise book in their hands.
Oh, I can't wait to myself. I didn't even know about your website, so I can't wait to dive in myself. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share further what this book did for you and just like where it's leading you. And that's just so exciting to hear that. So thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Rachelle. You have a great day.